Welcome again to our discussion of the reading comprehensions. Just like the previous sessions, here also we'll be practicing anticipatory reading, segregating the opinions from facts, and summarizing the passages effectively. Without further ado, let's begin with passage one. The rise of online education has transformed the learning experience, particularly. Okay, the word particularly is a transition here, which shows that in the next part, I am going to continue with the transformation in the learning experience, and I would be adding a specific situation to it during the COVID-19 pandemic when schools worldwide turned to virtual classrooms. Okay, so yes, there has been a transformation, and it has been especially emphasized in the times of COVID-19. Proponents argue that online platforms increase accessibility by allowing students to learn from anywhere, often at a lower cost than traditional education. Please notice the word often, which means that it is not necessary. Any option that is showing it as a mandatory factor should be crossed out. Coming back to the passage, the proponents are praising the online education system by saying that it is easily accessible and also the costs associated are lesser. They claim, the proponents are still claiming, that digital tools enable interactive learning with resources like videos, quizzes, and virtual labs. There are some additional benefits to what we've already said before. So ultimately transforming the learning experience, and proponents are kind of giving you the specific examples as to how the transformation is taking place. There it says, however, critics argue. The moment we saw proponents, we already knew that critics are going to say something contradictory, that online learning may lead to lower student engagement as virtual settings lack the structure and personal interaction of in-person classrooms. Okay, so we are giving an example over here as to how it could be problematic and what are the loopholes. Studies show that some students struggle with motivation and self-discipline in online formats, leading to higher dropout rates. Critics are not just claiming something, they are also giving some facts and statistics here to back their claim. In response, educational institutions are developing hybrid models that combine online and face-to-face learning to provide flexibility while maintaining engagement. Okay, so we had the proponent side, we had the critic side, and we are saying that as a response to the issues raised or highlighted by the critics, the educational institutions are going for a hybrid model. The future of education may lie in finding a balance that capitalizes on the advantages of both methods. Okay, so we are talking about what might be the future scope, and the future scope lies in the balance. If I would want to summarize the passage, it would be something like the balance needs to be attained for the future educational program. Also, please focus here that the proponent said something and then the critic said something. Ultimately, the stand that we are taking is pretty neutral. We are not picking up any side, and we are saying that yes, there are both the sides to it, and we'll be going with a mixed kind of model. Passage 2 says, social media algorithms play a significant role in shaping how individuals consume news, as platforms prioritize content that maximizes user engagement. Maximizing does not mean that it is the only one entailing it. It's just that this is the one that is taking it to the most possible point. Okay, so we are saying that there are some algorithms that are playing an important role in shaping the news and how the news is consumed. These algorithms access user behavior, such as something, something, something. And as we've talked before also, anything coming between two dashes is equivalent to coming between two brackets. It's an additional information to predict and display content that users are likely to interact with, creating a personalized news feed. Okay, so whatever the algorithms are used over here, what happens is that they analyze your behavior and accordingly they give you similar content to increase a feed that has more likelihood of you interacting with it. Advocates are supporting it. They are arguing that algorithm-driven news feeds increase user engagement and accessibility as they present users with content that aligns with their interests. Of course, we have critics challenging this claim. Content and such algorithms can contribute to the spread of misinformation and promote echo chambers where users are exposed only to viewpoints similar to their own. This can lead to a polarized society as individuals become less likely to encounter diverse perspectives. Okay, so while the advocates were saying that this circle of you getting the feed of what you are likely to interact with is definitely in the interest of the person. It aligns with the interest and it is good for engagement and accessibility. Critics are directly challenging it by saying that this kind of a cycle could promote a polarized society because you'll only be listening or you'll only be watching what you are currently willing to watch or see. This way, you'll never get to know the other perspective. And as a result, one kind of people will keep thinking in one kind of stream, and the other kind of people will live in their own stream. And there is a fair chance that no common point would be able to be reached. Additionally, researchers argue that algorithms can amplify sensationalized or misleading stories that provoke strong emotional responses, as these tend to generate higher engagement. Now, because my entire field was ultimately dependent on engagement, there is another problem that is coming in. The kind of content that seeks higher engagement or that promotes higher engagement is something which is sensational. And when such stories get repeatedly fed to you or fed to anyone, this could ultimately lead into stories or rumors being spread without any rationality. Social media companies are responding by introducing measures to label potentially false information and direct users to reliable sources. Yet, concerns about algorithmic influence persist. Okay, so I've tried to say that whatever the concerns were raised by critics, social media companies are trying to take care of them by trying to label the wrong information and preventing its spread. But ultimately, I am still saying that the concerns about the algorithmic influence persist, which means I'm saying that social media companies' efforts are somehow not enough, and thus the concerns continue. Experts urge a greater focus on transparency in algorithm design, suggesting that platforms should provide users with more control over their content feed. Okay, so experts are saying that everything is fine. You might be able to make these labels, but the first step that needs to be taken is that you need to maintain a transparency in the algorithm design. This way, people could have a better control as to what they are looking at and what their feed would show. To summarize the passage, here we try to talk about how social media needs to be kept under control and what are the different ways in which we can bring it under control. Moving to passage 3, it's a poem by William Wordsworth called Composed Upon Westminster Bridge. Earth has not anything to show more fair. Okay, we are saying that this probably is the fairest thing that Earth has to show. Dull would he be of soul who could pass by. The person who simply passes by this place without noticing this or without getting mesmerized in it would be the one who has a dull soul. A sight so touching in its majesty. So again, the poet is praising this sight. The city now doth, like a garment, wear the beauty of the morning, silent, bare. Okay, so the city is wearing this entire scenario, this scene, as a beautiful morning. Ships, stars, domes, theaters, and temples lie upon unto the fields and to the sky. The person is getting into further details about what all the site has, all bright and glittering in the smokeless air. Okay, so now in the previous sentence, we were talking about the man made structures, whereas in this sentence, the poet is talking about the natural environment. Never did sun more beautifully steep in his first splendor, valley, rock, or hill. The poet further continues with the praise of nature, saying that this is one of the most beautiful mornings, and this is one of the most beautiful steeps that the sun has taken. Never saw I, never felt a calm so deep. Now we are moving on to the poet's own feelings, that what is the poet feeling in such an environment, which is a calm feeling, a tranquility feeling. The river glideth at his own sweet will. The river is just moving at its own pace, at its own will. Dear God, the very houses seem asleep, and all that mighty heart is lying still. The poet further says that all of the places here seem asleep, as in the world hasn't probably woken up yet. But still, my heart is here. My heart is in this city. If we try to summarize the poem, William Wordsworth, who is, by the way, any which way is known for his poetry showing immense love for nature. Along the similar lines, this poem as well shows how he is praising the scene in front of him and says it to be the most beautiful, something which is filling him with energy, something which he has never seen before. Moving on to the next passage, another poem. This is If by Rudyard Kipling. If you can keep your head when all about you are losing theirs and blaming it on you. Okay, so the poet says that in such a situation when everybody else is losing their calm and blaming everything on you, in that moment, if you can keep your calm, if you can trust yourself when all men doubt you, but make allowance for their doubting too. Okay, another situation that the poet raises is when everybody else is doubting you, can you trust yourself? Yet giving validity to the doubts that other people are raising. If you can wait and not be tired by waiting or being lied about, don't deal in lies. Okay, so in case you are waiting, but you're waiting impatiently, that's not the scenario the poet is interested in. The poet says that if you can wait, and even when you're waiting, you are being patient, you are enjoying that time instead of waiting for it to be quickly over. Even when you're repeatedly being lied to, you still don't learn to lie. Or being hated, don't give way to hating. Even when you are being hated, you are not letting hate take over. And yet don't look too good, nor talk too wise. If you can dream and not make dreams your master. Even if you're such a good person and there's a possibility that you do not look something extraordinary. Maybe you are not extraordinarily intelligent either. Maybe you have dreams, but still you're not entirely governed by your dreams. If you can think and not make your thoughts your aim, if you can meet with triumph and disaster and treat those two impostors just the same. The poet says that if you have the capacity to think, and again, you are not letting those thoughts govern you, if you have tasted both success and failure, and yet you are able to distinguish between them while understanding that they are nothing but both the impostors of the same thing. If you can bear to hear the truth you've spoken, twisted by knaves to make a trap for fools, if you have the capacity to make sure that the misinterpretations or whatever manipulations are done, you are not treating them with bitterness or wash the things you gave your life to broken and stoop and build them up with worn out tools. So the poet says that you gave your all life and heart to something and it got broken. But if you still have the courage to stand up and build it up again, even if you do not have all the tools, in that case, what happens? So ultimately, this is only a part of Rudyard Kipling's poem. In this part, as we clearly understand, the poet is simply talking about some situations as to how a person should behave. And probably as we move towards the next part, there will be some conclusion to it that if you can do this, then what is going to be the situation? If we do this, what would be the thing? Ultimately, Rudyard Kipling is presenting a sequence of scenarios as to how or what is the way a person should behave. Overall, talking about the poem is about resilience, humility, patience, integrity. And eventually, we are saying that, okay, as we move further, these principles are the ones that are going to give you a fulfilling life. Moving on to our last passage for today, the poem Annabel Lee by Edgar Allan Poe. It was many and many a year ago in a kingdom by the sea. So we are beginning by telling that whatever we are going to say further, the setting of it is a kingdom which was near the sea, and this was a long time ago. That a maiden there lived, whom you may know by the name of Annabel Lee, and this maiden she lived with no other thought than to love and be loved by me. The poet says that at that specific place in that kingdom lived a person, a lady called Annabel Lee, and the only purpose she knew was to love me, and all she wanted was me to love her back. I was a child, and she was a child in this kingdom by the sea. So we're talking again about the very same kingdom, and the poet says that both me and her were a child, but we loved with a love that was more than love. I and my Annabel Lee. So this repetition is just indicating that their love was very simple. Their love was beautiful, and thus it ultimately transcended something which was ordinary. With the lust that the winged seraphs of heaven coveted her and me. And now, further, the poet is talking that the perfection of their love was something which resembled the heavenly qualities. And this was the reason that, long ago, in this kingdom by the sea, again in this very kingdom, this entire love became the reason for something that happened a long time ago. A wind blew out of a cloud, chilling my beautiful Annabel Lee. The weather got unpleasant and it made my love uncomfortable. So that her high horned kinsman came and bore her away from me. Now, the moment I moved to this sentence, I can make the sense that it was not just about exactly the weather. The wind blew out of a cloud was not just expression about weather, but probably something which we are using to indicate that an unpleasant thing happened, which resulted in the separation between these two lovers. To shut her up in a sepulchre in this kingdom by the sea. And then this lady was closed in the palace. The angels, not half so happy in the heaven, went envying her and me. Okay, so the poet says that even the angels envied their love, and they were not so happy in heaven. Yes, that was the reason, as all men know, in this kingdom by the sea. Okay, so the poet is saying the previous sentence as the reason as to why all of this happened. So the poet says that I and my lover got separated because even the angels envied our love. That the wind came out of the cloud by night, chilling and killing my Annabel Lee. The poet says that this is the reason why tragedy struck me and my love. Summarizing the poem, Edgar Allan Poe talks of the love between two people and calls it so heavenly, calls it so above and beyond ordinary that even the angels envied it. This love itself, this extreme love itself, became the reason for their separation, as the supernatural forces were not so much in its favor. So Edgar Allan Poe seems to be mourning the death of his beloved. That would be all for this session. Let's meet for yet another session and solidify understanding on reading comprehensions. Thank you.